The reading that I've chosen is from one of my favourite books on Celtic spirituality. It's called Sacred Earth, Sacred Soul by John Philip Newell. Because I'm going to be talking about the importance of the divine imagination. John Philip Newell writes, "In the Celtic world, the imagination is a faculty of knowing. It is a way of remembering what we have forgotten, that spirit and matter are interwoven, that time and eternity intermingle. The imagination is also a bridge into the future, forever opening us to ways of seeing and living that we have not yet experienced. To be made of God is to be made of sacred imagination. It is to have the capacity to dream our way into new beginnings in our lives and in our world." John O'Donohue says very similar things. I'm going to talk about the divine imagination today. I want to open with this. There's a guy called James Finley. So he has a lot of sacred wisdom that is tested in real life. And this is actually from a song, so you'll hear a little bit of music behind it. It's from an album called Point Verge by my friend Alana.
There are those who hold that one religion is the true religion. And all...
That's from an album called Point Verge. And that was James Finley. He says, "There is in the absoluteness of view a lack of humility which cuts us off from the way God works in the hearts and the lives of other people in ways that are different than we are accustomed to." He says that the wise person is the humble person because they know so deeply the limits of their knowledge. And he says the limit is actually the rich, fertile edge along which the new keeps appearing. I'm going to try and unpack that for us. We've got a month, yeah? Back in 2008, I lived in a religious community on the island of Iona in Scotland. They were the most open-minded Christians I'd ever met. And when they invited me to join them, I thought, well, if you can't share your faith with the most open-minded Christians you've ever met, who can you share your faith with? So reluctantly, I went to live in the Abbey. My wife got a job there, and I went because of her job. I often call this time in my life the Abbey, because we actually lived in an 800-year-old Benedictine Abbey that our community had rebuilt in between World Wars I and II around that time. They brought unemployed workers and inner-city young ministers that were interested in changing poverty, and they brought them together to rebuild this abbey. While I was there, I received my calling to become a minister. And I want to tell you the story because I think it shows how the imagination can be used as a tool to open up to the new. And here in 2026, in this precise moment of time, our world and our nation and our town and our church and our loved ones need us to open to the new. We need new financial systems, we need new government systems, we need a lot of help in creating justice. And we actually don't know how to do it. That's the problem. We have a willingness. How do we begin to dream into a new, kinder world where no one is left out? A new world. Well, an ancient tool that can help us here is the Celtic understanding of imagination as a faculty of knowing. And the last thing I want to say is that change happens with one idea, one person, one household, one church at a time. That's how it happens. So going back to this big change that happened in my life, I was walking on the road, and all of a sudden, I heard this instruction. It was in my mind, but it was as clear as if you were speaking to me. And it said, and this isn't my usual, this doesn't normally happen to me, but this voice from inside, or maybe from the earth, said, I want you to be a minister in a new way that doesn't exist yet. Like out of nowhere, mystical experience. It happened really fast. And here's the funny thing. My immediate reaction wasn't to be like, am I going nuts? My immediate reaction was, oh, I don't know how to do that. And in my head, immediately I heard laughing. Right? And that laughing was the end of the conversation, but it made me realize that if there is a divine imagination, a creative artist, a land that can speak to people, it knows that person, and it's not going to ask them to do something that they're rubbish at. It's going to ask me to do something I'm good at. Oh, what would God want me to do? What am I good at? I'm good at loving people. I'm going to love people. God is asking me to be a minister in a new way that loves people. Okay, that wasn't a very good instruction. Here's where the divine imagination comes in. I started thinking about it. And one day I was walking down the road, and I was just walking past the maintenance shed, and on the blue door it said, Jesus was a carpenter. And I thought, oh, that's what I'll do. I will be a carpenter. That's a kind of minister. Jesus was a carpenter first. I'll do that. What will I build? Well, I live on a little island, and we have wooden boats. I'm going to learn to build wooden boats. They look really beautiful. They've got sacred geometry, and they're just beautiful. I'm going to learn to do that. I'm one of those people, you know when you go in the boat and it starts to tip? I want to get back on the land. Know nothing about carpentry, nothing about boats. This is what I decided to do. And I thought, I'm going to get a workshop instead of a church, and I'm going to learn to do this. So I went to study, to apprentice with the only boat building minister I'd ever heard of in Maine. That's why I came to America. I went to this place called the Carpenter's Boat Shop to apprentice with a wonderful man called Bobby Ives. And after a year there, I went to the Northwest School of Wooden Boat Building near Seattle. And for the next 5 years, I learned how to build boats with people, because it takes many hands to build a boat. And then after I'd done all that, that's when I went to Interfaith Seminary down in New York City. And over this span of 7 years, a very new life evolved. But here's the thing. I just made all that stuff up. I just made it all up. And yes, I trust my mystical experience that prompted me to make a change. I filled in the details with my imagination, and it served me very, very well. Because sometimes we hit the limit of our knowledge. That's what James Finley said when I was holding up the phone earlier. He said, the limit of our knowledge is the rich, fertile edge along which the new keeps appearing. And one of the ways that the new appears is through the creative process, especially if it's deeper than words. And I've noticed that when I've had the incredible gift of being with Native American elders or tribespeople, they'll really, as they're thinking, they'll be very aware of what's happening in the world around them. Whether that's an item breaking or crows. Where is the person that had the crows? Yeah. To allow our thinking to be infused by what's happening around us, what's happening in our bodies, and what's creatively bubbling up. I mean, I'm a songwriter, so this is kind of my thing. The music comes first, and then I fill in the details. I just make up the song. Well, do I? No, I don't, because I feel the song first. And then I go and I search for it and I find the chords and the key that's the right key. And then my clever mind joins in, right? I think our problem as people is that we think the clever mind does it all. Clever mind only knows what it knows. It's really good at doing research. It's really good at some things, but it's not enough. Einstein said that the answers to our problems are not found at the same level of thinking that creates the problems in the first place. The answers to our problems are not found at the same level of thinking that creates the problem in the first place. Well, what is the kind of, Einstein doesn't necessarily tell us that. He did say that the most important question you can ask is this universe friendly or not? And I think what he was getting at was, is there a divine imagination that your imagination can tap into? Is there a collective consciousness? I don't know. I didn't get to ever have a conversation with Einstein. I probably wouldn't have understood what he was on about anyway. John O'Donohue, who I do get really well, that beautiful poet who used to be a Catholic priest, amazing man, who died in 2008, he says, "It is the divine imagination that calls out of things the secret shape that it holds." It is the divine imagination that calls out of things the secret shape that it holds. Remember I was saying about, I find the shapes of the chords and the key first and create the bedrock of the song in which the poetry can come. And sometimes the poetry is the words of Rumi or the words of someone else. My clever mind doesn't have anything to do with it. In the Christian tradition, we just had Ash Wednesday, with ashes on the head. And they talk about repentance, right? Now, I want to look at another meaning. There's a Greek word, metanoia, for repentance. And it doesn't just mean like that first step on the 12 steps, to name what you're doing and turn away from it. It also means, metanoia means to try on a higher mind, to try to see things beyond how you see it. That's part of the work of undoing the mistakes. The imagination is very important to me as a musician and somebody who adores Celtic spiritual wisdom. In the Celtic spiritual wisdom, much of it has been handed down through stone carvings and poems and songs. There's no kind of encyclopedia or doctrine, which I think is a great thing. And one of the things why this inspires me so much is that you can look at what the artist was pointing to and try and imagine what it was they were seeing. The lens of the poet is just such an amazing thing. Have we got any poets in the house? The world needs you because of the way that you see the world. Here is a poem called Earth as Original Spiritual Directors by my friend Christine Valters Paintner. She's talking about this way of seeing that infuses imagination into our thinking. May everything in creation become a catalyst for your self-understanding. Let the sacred whispers carried on the wind invite you to release what is not necessary. Let the breezes help your wings to ascend, the sparrows to remember your flock. Let the divine fire that burns in your heart kindle you to deeper compassion, sunlight to seek illumination. Let the rivers and seas support you in allowing spirit to flow through your life in new ways, embracing the rise and fall within you. Let the pine cones contain an epiphany, and the forest ask you to embrace your truth once again, and each smooth stone a revelation. Let the moon sing of quiet miracles like those which are revealed and conceal the world every day right before your eyes. May you make time to listen to the elements in their wisdom, revealing the Holy One's face and the sacred direction for your one precious life. This reminds me of Mary Oliver. Yeah. In a very real way, the world becomes what we see it to be. Or more to the point, we become what we are seeking. We become what we are seeking. As a minister, a lot of baby boomers say to me, "Oh, I'm just a seeker." And I'm like, yes, you're a seeker. Yes, you're seeking the thing that your heart knows is possible. That is a very valid religious path. So if we think about that longing that our heart, and especially when we see injustice, especially when we see Iran being bombed, well, for me anyway, no. This is not the way, and I'm filled with fear. And like all that stuff, we have to deal with all that stuff. But I am talking about a step that comes after that, which is, what do I see instead? How do I be the exact opposite? Regardless of how much of a difference I make in life, I cannot be that thing. I cannot be that thing. I have to be actively nonviolent. And here we've just had the example of the monks, those Buddhist monks. God, I loved them. They were amazing. And that dog that walked with them, they exuded peace, but not just peace, also healing. Did you see them go up and bless people? I also noticed how they held their quiet presence right next to religious Christian bigots shouting at them that they were going to hell. Oh, what do you want to be? Do you want to be this gentle presence that pauses for children? Or do you want to be somebody judging somebody else's religion? I'll choose the monks, thank you. It was so obvious what walking your talk looks like. For me, anyway. My biggest example, role model of be the change is Francis of Assisi. His early biographer, one of the brothers, said Francis did not so much pray as he himself became a living prayer. Now, Francis did it. We can all do it. And I see that living prayer in the Dalai Lama. When he rushes up to people to greet them. He's never met them before, but you'd think it was his best friend in the whole world. He's able to see the belovedness of that person. A little bit of wisdom from the artists again, because they're the ones that really teach us how to see this way. Leonardo da Vinci said, learn how to see. Notice how everything connects to everything else. Learn how to see. Notice how everything connects to everything else. Similarly, I'm going to quote John O'Donohue again. It is the divine imagination that calls out of things the secret shape that it holds. Now, this expanded, inclusive of the imagination way of seeing, where you can see the statue in the stone, is not just for artists, it's also for anybody interested in compassion, justice, beauty, or increased reverence. There's a Scottish guy you've probably never heard of. His name was Sir Patrick Geddes. He died just after World War I. Now, he was a pioneering philanthropist, biologist, sociologist, and urban planner. And he taught that cities should be understood through the lens of place, work, and people and folk. He was one of the earliest people to say, think globally, act locally. And he taught zoology and biology at Edinburgh University. To get his students to think out of the conventions of scientific abstract thinking, Patrick Geddes would take his students to the Botanic Gardens and geek out at the sacred geometry before their eyes. He would say, this is a quote, now take what you have learned and let it set your imagination on fire. What is the beauty that you can bring to the world from this story, from this knowledge of this tree? He was so inspired that it wasn't just scientists who gathered around him. Young artists did too. And the only reason I know about Patrick Geddes is because he had such a huge influence on the Celtic revival and all the painters. I pray with paintings. I pray with images. How did the artists learn to see the myth in nature and all that depth? It was because they listened to this urban planner scientist. This way of the Celtic revival and nature, and we are nature, and this outpouring of goodness is a big part of what I teach as a minister. There's so much about life that I believe to be true, but I can't explain it in a rational way. I can only really explain it through my actions or through my songs. Here's a quote by Thomas More called Re-Enchantment of Everyday Life. Enchantment means enchanté, with song. Enchanté, but it's not just song, it's sacred language. We might not want the dogma of religion, but we need to keep the reverence and the vision and the sacred language. Call a prayer a prayer. Anyway, I'm preaching. I know I'm allowed to preach, but that's not the point. Thomas More. We tend to consider imagination too lightly, forgetting that the life we make for ourselves individually and for the world as a whole is shaped and limited only by the parameters of our imagination. Things are as we imagine them to be, as we imagine them into existence. Imagination is creativity, and the way we make our world depends on the vitality of our imagination. So the child in us is needed to help us show up in this way. And for that reason, I've got all these clever words, but maybe I'll come to conclusion with a joke. There's this couple, let's call them John and Mary, and they're looking out their window at their neighbour Sarah's house, and she's hanging out the washing. She's putting her sheets out, and the sheets are filthy. And the couple say to each other, do you think there's something wrong with her washing machine? No, it's not our business. Let's just leave it. A few days later, they watch her. She's putting out T-shirts, and they're covered in stains. And they're like, we should tell her something. There must be something wrong. Maybe her eyesight's going. A week later, they look out, and here's, did I call her Jane? Sarah, thank you. Here's Sarah. Here's Sarah. You see, I just made it up. Here's Sarah hanging up the sheets again, but this time they're really clean. And the wife says to the husband, oh, she must have got a new washing machine. And he said, no, I just cleaned the windows. Right. Meister Eckhart, 700 years ago in Germany, said, I need to be silent for a while. Worlds are forming in my heart. The partner to the divine imagination is quiet, especially in nature. We are different when we're in a canoe or even just sitting in a garden. We think differently. My last point is that we can integrate the imagination into what we have as wounded healers, attending to our longing for the world and bringing into focus solutions to the pains that we carry in our hearts. I often say that our heart grieves because we know another nonviolent option is available to us. I used to teach with Quakers in prisons, and we would teach there's always a nonviolent option. Find it, seek it. Louis Armstrong introduced What a Wonderful World in a video that I watched recently. He said, I can't do Louis Armstrong properly, sorry. But for copyright reasons, I thought I shouldn't play it through the phone. Some of you young folks have been saying to me, hey Pops, what do you mean, what a wonderful world? How about all them worlds all over the place? You call them wonderful? How about the hunger and the pollution? they ain't so wonderful either. And he says, how about listening to old Pops for a minute? Seems to me that it ain't the world that's bad, it's but what we're doing to it. And what I'm saying is what a wonderful world it would be if only we gave it a chance. Love, baby, love. That's the secret. If lots more of us loved each other, we'd solve lots more problems, and the world would then be better. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. So I'm going to end with a song that is a beautiful example of the divine imagination. Francis of Assisi, he died 800 years ago this October. That's why they're showing his bones right now. It's a weird thing to do, isn't it? Anyway. I love St. Francis enough that if I lived in Italy, I might go. But it is a weird thing to do. In the last bit of time in his life, he had a terrible eye condition and they cauterized his eyes, and he was in so much pain. Also, he supposedly had the stigmata, so he couldn't walk, and he had a lot of pain, and he wasn't able to go outside when the sun was shining. And despite that, he wrote a song that can rival Louis Armstrong's "What a Wonderful World." His heart was singing out to the compassion and kindness and beauty and natural order pouring out into the world. So I'll sing that for you, and then we'll have a song that we can all sing together. Does that sound okay? Most high, all-powerful, precious God, the spoken word can hold your name. And praise be to you who births all life with all your creatures. Especially you, sir, brother, son, who is the day and is your life, a beauty so true to you. There you are, there you are. Praise be to you, my Lord, you are. Sister moon and the stars, bright, precious heaven, there you are. There you are. Praise be to you, my Lord, you are. Brother wind and the air, breath of spirit, there you are. There you are. Praise be to you, my Lord, you are. Sister water, the gift of life, pure, essential, there you are. There you are. Praise be to you, my Lord, you are. Brother fire, friend through the night, strong and playful, there you are. There you are. high, all-powerful, precious God. Through Mother Earth we see your face, you who govern all of life, sustain and nurture all that is. With Sister Death, first and last breath, the key unlocking all we are. There we are. There we are. There we are. I want to say to you, I'm going to get down here if I can. I want to say to you, I think of you as the social justice church. You get that, and you do it really, really well. If you can bring the artist in for a vision of our wholeness as you respond to all that is wrong, something powerful happens. This stuff about the divine imagination that I am talking about isn't the only piece needed. The action for justice is needed, but bringing the two together. So I am aware that what I've said today is a little bit unbalanced, but it's the aspect that I bring as an artist, and hope that you will take that and make it your own in your own way. Please take what was useful in what I shared and throw away the rest. Life is too small for other people's ideas.